Well, hello. Welcome to my live stream. I'm really glad you could join me. Today, I had all these great plans. You know how you make plans and everything seems to conspire against those plans happening. So here's what happened this week. Lots of things happened this week. I had a plan to have a little shadow cam, which is my dog's bed back here. And I was setting things up and realized I needed my phone for my overhead camera to do an unboxing. And I didn't have another phone or camera set up to do my shadow cam. So, hey, what can you do? Hello, Kat. Hello, Mike. Welcome for welcome for joining. Well, I'm going to be all kabooberated today. Thank you for joining the live stream. If you happen to be new and you're catching this now or after the replay, say so in the comments. Let me know that you're new, and I'll make a special shout out for you. Today I'm going to do a couple of unboxings, maybe 3, because I don't know what's in the boxes, and I'm just guessing. There's 2 things I want to unbox. One is, so let me just say, today's show is going to be about, well, photography, life, and business. These are the things that I just can't help talk about. And so that's what I'm going to do, talk about photography, life, and business. So in regards to photography, the unboxing will have to do with, hopefully, an Atomos Ninja 5, which is going to be used as a monitor and recording device on my Nikon Z6. I actually will be able to, when I get the update, be able to do ProRes RAW recording from my Nikon Z6, which is very promising. And then the other thing I'm going to be unboxing, hopefully, is a Smallrig cage for my camera to help it become more of a video or vlogging camera, so I can attach things or even bring it portably around. I do this at the church. I operate my words aren't coming out. A roaming camera, and so the cage will allow me to attach a few things like a bigger handle and an extra external battery, so we don't have to run off AC power, but I have a better battery, and other things like that. And then who knows, maybe, oh, I got a duck. Gary's throwing popcorn at the screen. Hi, Gary, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Something I've learned. So let's talk about, those are the things: photography, life lessons. I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID. I know nobody wants to hear about COVID, but it's better than talking about the U.S. election. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID and something I'm going through, and you may be able to relate. And yeah, so that's where it's at. And then what I want to encourage you to do is ask questions. It's really important that I hear from you as I build the live stream. I mentioned today to my friend, I said, this is going to be a slow burn. My channel's going to start slowly. I'm not getting everything and all the bells and whistles up. I'm building it one small step at a time. This week, I don't know if I have an extra step in. Like, I didn't get an extra camera. I didn't get the ATEM switcher installed. I don't know what's different this week. I can't really say. Maybe you can tell me what's different for you this week, and that'll be a good one. I'm not going to jump into the thing. So yeah, that's photography is my unboxing. Life is a bit of COVID. And business is partially related to that. And it's running and growing my business and the pivots I've taken, even during COVID, the success, the not so successful. So hopefully those are going to be interesting things to have a discussion about. Oh, and I'm going to say welcome to Tisha and Brandon. Thank you for joining. Really good to have you here. You were here last week, and so I'm thrilled to have you here again. And so photography. In the world of photography, so I'll get to the unboxing in just a second. But if you're a photographer, if you're not a photographer, this could still be an interesting YouTube channel and live stream, because I do talk about all things photography, life, and business. And into that is wrapped things like creativity. And you may even learn a few things about getting better pictures, even with your, I say even with, these days they're incredible, even with the cell phone camera and even point and shoots. So Mike has some great news. Mike, congratulations, you're getting published again in 2 more fashion magazines. That's fantastic news to hear. I'm glad you're getting some outreach with your portrait photography, because that's photography, life, and business, isn't it, Mike? Let me get back to photography. So Nikon, was it a week ago, announced their Z6 and Z7 II. And that's not 2 as in the number 2, 2 as in II, as in it's not like Nikon has always done. They've done like the D4 and the D4S and the D3 and the D3S and the D5 and soon to be the D5S. No, it's the Z6 II and the Z7 II. Not sure why they did that, but hey, they answered our questions, right? We said, Nikon, why was there not 2 memory card slots? And guess what? Now there are 2 memory card slots. One's a XQD card, which I love, by the way. It allows them to get really high read and write speeds and give me really good, like 12 frames per second speed on this incredible Nikon Z6 camera. They gave us a new battery grip too that we can buy that has the trigger and all the features on it. Their first battery grip gave us 2 batteries, but they didn't tell us why they didn't give us the trigger, and I've come to figure that out. So Nikon in the Z6 and Z7 have created a phenomenal video camera. Like, it's outstanding, honestly. The colors, the ability, the autofocus, they've almost got it 100%. And maybe in the Nikon version 2 of the Z6 and 7, the autofocus will be even better because they have upgraded it. They've had 2 or now 3 firmware updates, and that autofocus gets better all the time. So, before I get any further, I am just going to, I hope this works. I don't even know. We're going to try this. That YouTube thing that people with YouTube channels do, and that is that little thing that comes out and does that. Yeah, subscribe. Don't forget to click the reminders too if you like to get reminded. And give the video a thumbs up if you like it. I would really appreciate that. So, why did the first battery grip on the Nikon not have the trigger, the buttons? Well, first, I think they were really missing the market when they were pushing a video camera. For instance, while I was doing time-lapse, if I had had the battery grip, it takes 2 of the regular batteries, what is it, ELN15B or C? I don't know. Anyway, the Nikon battery for the Z6, it's hot swappable. And that means you can remove one battery that's dying and replace it with a fresh battery without affecting the operation of the camera. So if you're doing time-lapse or video, that's actually super, super important. The ability to hot swap batteries, especially since with mirrorless and video, you don't get as much battery life. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, as a portrait photographer, I needed the ability to flip the camera on its side and have the shutter on top or in vertical on the battery grip. So they did that. They got the battery grip, they got the two memory cards, and people are going to complain because, oh, why didn't they put 2 XQD cards? Why did they do it like the D850 and have a XQD and an SD? And I'll tell you why I like that too. Because if you're on the spot and your very expensive XQD memory card reader fails, you can actually write from the camera, from the XQD card to the SD card, and then stick that right in your computer instead of having to transmit wirelessly, which you can do. You can transmit your images wirelessly to your computer or to a device, but it allows you to write from one card to the other, which I think is a really cool feature. And that way, when you're in the field like I often am with just a laptop, I could write to the SD card, plug it into my computer, and operate from there. So that's an interesting thing. Okay, so that's photography. The photography world, I'm a Nikon guy, and I think that Nikon has created a camera that they undersold. The Nikon Z6/Z7 are just remarkable cameras. First, if your primary concern is image quality, I think they have the best sensors in the world. They have an image quality. Even Jared Polin says, even though he kind of abandoned Nikon for a while, Jared Polin, the Fro knows photo, has even remarked, he still says the Nikon image files are simply the best out there. And I agree. And he's pretty strongly into Sony right now. But he is anticipating Nikon improving their autofocus, and he's likely going to switch back because he's been raving about the new lenses too, just in love with the new lenses. So, hey, that's the photography world. What about life? How are you doing? So, if you're watching the recording of this as an archive in 10 years from now and you really don't know what happened during COVID, well, it was a time in history. So if I'm looking back 10 years from now, I'm going to say what worked and what didn't, and what did we go through? Yeah. Before I get into that, Gary, I'm going to get to the comments. Sorry, Gary, you're right. I think it is I'm sorry, we should have done that in the first place. But did you notice that in Nikon's first couple of iterations, they had one card slot and were far behind there, but they did invest heavily in lenses. Sony had to. They didn't have lenses to move forward with. They had to invest in lenses. Both Canon and Nikon came out with their adapter mounts because they have a ton of lenses, especially Nikon, a ton of really high-grade glass you can attach to that camera without having to invest a fortune in the new upgrades to glass. So honestly, it was the best thing they could have done, and they didn't leverage it. They didn't tell you why this was such a great feature, the Z adapter, because I can use my 24-70 lens, or I can use my 70 to 200 or my 80 to 400 or my great 85 millimeter lens with no loss in quality or speed, none, right on the Z6 or Z7, right on their mirrorless offerings. So brilliant. And that gives them time to upgrade the bodies and do that slow burn of introducing fantastic glass. They're not missing a beat. The glass they've been releasing is bar none industry quality best stuff. It is amazing glass, as we've come to expect from Nikon. Anyway, so that was a diversion. Back to COVID. So, what do you guys think? I've been sitting here since in Ontario, and specifically in the Greater Toronto area and York region, I guess Ottawa and other regions have gone to what they call a modified phase 2. So we've gone backwards in things. And yeah, backwards, it feels back. It feels like going backwards. I got to tell you, you know what I've been forgetting to do? I'm getting so distracted today. Gary, for example, why didn't I do that and bring up your comment? So I'm doing it late because I think it's good to bring my comments up for you guys. Interestingly, if I trim my video, this won't make any sense unless the comment is there, because if I trim the video, I lose the live chat. So, Mike, I'm going to bring this comment up as well, because this will get us back on track, won't it? Mike says, I think the whole world has underestimated COVID. I don't know if the whole world has. I think a large portion of it has. I think the experts told us all along to be prepared for a second wave that would be worse than the first wave. I don't know if it's necessarily worse at this point. Fortunately, we're more prepared now, which was the whole point of leveling the curve. So we leveled the curve in order to be better prepared to handle COVID as outbreaks happened. And I think we've done that. So in one sense, we've been successful, and we should be more prepared for this. And so this new phase coming into the winter, this season of flu viruses or viruses in general, and so we're coming into this without being under the illusion in North America we could stop it cold. Just lower the curve to reduce the burden on our healthcare system and our professionals while we learned to adapt and live with this until hopefully a vaccine can come. I personally don't think, and I don't think scientifically, reaching what they call herd immunity is possible without a vaccine. And so just opening up and saying let it run its course would be irresponsible and cost greatly in lives and long-term health effects. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm not a scientist, but I do trust that the experts know what they're talking about when they say reaching herd immunity would be near impossible without a vaccine. Cat, yeah, I'm going to bring that up. So, Cat, New Zealand did take it seriously and were able to really curb it, but they really did shut down and prevented people from entering the country. And so that is true, that they handled it much better than some other countries. Sweden had a different approach, and they didn't mandate as much as far as restrictions go, but they did ask for and receive a high level of voluntary compliance, more than we're getting here, even with our mandates. And so their economy was deeply affected. And they still had death rates that exceeded ours as far as per capita population, but they had better voluntary compliance. And so they didn't have to take more stringent measures like we did here in Canada. Yeah, and so I'm going to get to that on business, Gary. This is going to lead us to business. I'm going to add this to the key, to the comment. Business says, I think COVID has proven to all entertainment photographers that they need multiple sources of income. And when I talk about business today, what I'm going to transition to is how I've pivoted and managed to develop some new income sources with all the restrictions. But here's what happened to me. I was doing all right for 6 months. I was doing pretty good. The first 2 months I spent time with family, got used to a new normal, had the grandkids, especially my oldest grandson, over for, I think, 5 straight weeks in the beginning while he was home from school, and adjusted to slowly building out a small bubble and then a bigger bubble. So first immediate family and then a few extended friends. I do help produce a live stream through my church. And so this has helped me up my live streaming game and learn about all this technology. But I have a small bubble of a worship team and production team at the church, even though we still wear masks as the production team. And we still try not to be in close quarters for long periods of time and all those things. That was my bubble. When things got worse, it set me back emotionally. I don't know that I was ready, and I think a lot of people can relate. Some people are dealing with this really well. I talked to some friends who were able to plan trips. They rented a camper and did some northern BC stuff and did some photography and art, and it was good for their soul, even though all their other normal travel plans have been canceled. For me, I didn't do that this fall, and I think to my detriment. I stayed home working on my other parts of my business and concentrating on family and home upgrades. And because I didn't do my fall trip, and I'm not doing a winter trip, and I'm not traveling outside the country, I felt the four walls close in, and I entered a phase of maybe mourning. It was loss. It was a fuzziness. I talked about being out of focus last week. So my sleep schedule got disrupted, and that's a warning sign for me. That's a big red flag when my sleep gets disrupted. And I have to be really careful about that. And so here's what I want to say about all this. And I'm not going to do too much deep as far as what I think is a right or wrong approach for governments and for people. Here's what I think. You're allowed to feel crappy. You're allowed to go through periods of uncreativity. You're allowed to wake up not feeling well or not feeling certain, not feeling confident. And here's why. In this time of massive adjustment for most of us, our brains are working overtime. They're working at 10 times their rate. That prefrontal cortex, that area that reasons with life, is in overdrive, trying to reason with this new reality. And so by default, your creativity will notch down. It has to. Not all things can fire all the time. And so our brains are asking us to be highly adaptive. And to do that, it has to suppress other things. So don't feel guilty about not feeling creative. Don't feel bad about going through depressive episodes as long as they don't last long or deep. And if they do, reach out for help. Reach out and talk to some people. Get on the real telephone or get into some Zoom meetings or talk to somebody about what you're going through and how you're feeling. That's the first step to feeling better, I think. But if it's a dip, if it's just a dip and you recognize it for that, allow yourself to go through it. Yeah. I'm going to pull up a couple of these. Let's move on to this because a couple of points are being made well. First, Lori, you're absolutely right. It's not just the entertainment industry. It's kind of all things creative and photography or things where I guess people that had jobs in restaurants and servers or people that were in the service industry have all been deeply affected. And so that leads to the next thing that Kat from My Happy Insights has said. And that is that we're all going through a grieving process for the things and experiences we're losing and that have dragged on. And so that's true. I entered COVID already coming off losses. The company I had worked for hit financial rough waters and my trips were canceled. That the thing I talk about, which I'm still pretty sensitive about, though I'm accepting, the closing of Google Plus and the loss of the Arcanum, the mentorship platform I did work for, and I'll get into my pivots in a minute when we talk about business. But those are all losses, and so we were all looking forward over the summer. We had holidays, we were opening up, we had time with friends, we were able to go to restaurants, and we began to breathe again, only to have this thing close back in on us, and I just personally wasn't that ready. Oh, I forgot to hit send on that last comment. Let me look at a couple of comments. Be patient because I'm going to pull them up. And Lori, by the way, thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. Gary said, very similar thing here. Gary was saying he thinks the trouble is people are holding out hope it'll all be back to normal in 2021. And now there's a reality that maybe that's not going to be the case. And while we were prepared for a half a year, maybe 9 months at the outside, we're starting to think maybe that's not fully the case. Tisha and Brandon, yes, meditation and CBT are helping with that. So I have been turning back to more meditation and meditation and prayer. My meditation is more on my faith journey, so that comes to prayer, to studying scriptures, and to meditating. And CBT was a lifesaver for me in my own journey. So that's cognitive behavior therapy. And that's taking these thoughts that automatically come in, these things that we tell ourselves that very likely aren't true. They could be actually completely untrue. And so it's capturing that thought and saying, are you true? And can I reframe this and address it in a different way for a better outcome? And so, yeah, if you don't know CBT, I highly recommend it as a therapy or a modality to reframe your thinking and transfer those negative automatic thoughts into positive outcomes. Literally was part of my overcoming mental illness. So I'm not going to stay and park here very much longer on COVID because I'm a bit COVID tired, but I just wanted to say, give yourself permission to grieve the losses, embrace a new normal, and find new things that bring you joy. We're still allowed to get outside, to go for walks. I can get in my car and I can go up north. I could have enjoyed more of the fall colors. I can focus on improving my relationship with those that are close to me. Social media has been for me both good and bad. There's been some bad about it, but good because I've been investing in the relationships that are meaningful to me, including starting my live stream. And so I'm going to pivot over to business. Sorry, I'm going to bring that up, Mike. So true. Have you noticed that face masks have become the new disposable chewing gum? Probably cigarette butts as well. Yes, unfortunately, that is true. Sometimes I think people just may not know. They pull something out of their pocket and it falls out. Other times I think people are just blatantly have lack of respect. So let's work on a new normal. Let's work together on a new normal. And if Zoom calls and Facebook Lives are part of that new normal, let's embrace them. Zoom fatigue is a real thing. It's a new modality that engages that prefrontal cortex and really causes us to to struggle in other areas, those creative areas, those desire areas, they get pushed down. So just recognize that. We probably need a little more time to reflect and have peace, like with medication. Well, maybe medication, but meditation is what I meant to say. Medication can help. For everything else, there's wine. Though I'm not a drinker, I know other people really enjoy their afternoon wine. And I think these days that starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Business. So what have I done as a business in the service industry, in photography, that literally in March became unemployed because my studio had to shut down? Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Catherine from My Happy Insides, she just got back into knitting and finding it's helping me, especially with the Zoom fatigue. Do you know what's interesting about knitting? It does require a little thinking, but it's one of those repetition things that almost becomes mindless after a while. And so it literally is in itself a form of meditation. You know what? You may know why women live longer than men. More women knit than men. Women live longer than men. I think we're on to something here, Kat. What do you think? My wife knits. She's going to outlive me. There's no doubt. My grandmother well, I guess on both sides, knitted and crocheted, and both outlived their husbands by miles. On my dad's side, my grandmother lived, I think, until she was 98 or 99. I think it's knitting. This is a revelation. And we may never have known that had we not been doing a Zoom Live during COVID, right? Oh, this will go down in history. I used to build models when I was younger. Model cars. My dad showed me how to do model cars. That was good meditation because it engaged that. I'm very mechanically and practically minded. I'm spatially minded. Building models was very good for me. So here's the things I did. After taking probably almost 2 months to adjust to what COVID was going to be or become, I decided to launch my membership platform for photographers. So one of the things that has been extremely helpful is photographers have all been struggling a bit, but I've always done photography mentoring and education. And so I launched a membership platform. Was it June 1st? July 1st. So July, August, September, October. Yeah, 4 months in. It's going very well. And it's a place where we can share about photography, about our struggles. It's where some of us have expressed frustrations, but others of us have said, hey, you know what? During COVID, my husband and I, we went on a trip locally into our national parks or wherever they were able to go. And they had some great times getting out and doing photography and engaging the creative part and shutting down social media. So that's something that's good that I actually plan to do this winter because I love taking winter trips. Call me crazy. I like it when it's about 8 below, a pair of snowshoes, some good gear, and a couple of cameras. I absolutely adore that here in Northern Ontario. So that's what I plan to do. And while I'm talking about this, throw it into the comments, kind of things that you found have been successful for you as a business or personally in life. Like, because this is photography, life, and business. What are the things that are working for you? And I'll share it with you. So I launched my community, and that did 2 things. It brought in some extra income, but more than that, it connected me to people that I can no longer be connected to in real life on trips or running live workshops or going to Photoshop World or any of those events. They're just not possibilities for me. And so I get to stay connected in online private communities, which are encouraging and safe and away from the main feed of Facebook. Because I got to tell you, that main feed in Facebook can be toxic. Watch out for that one. Oh. So Mike, as far as business goes, you just started advertising at the moment. You have 44 new subscribers just this week. And yeah, so taking subscribers to paying clients is like, it's a relationship. It's more like courting and not a marriage. You don't have someone subscribe and ask them for a marriage right away. You court them, You share what you do, you share your passion for it, and you share the result that helps them solve a problem. And when you can solve a problem for somebody, then they become very interested in what you do. And if you can demonstrate you do it really well, then the price point doesn't become irrelevant, but it becomes less and less important, because the solution to the problem is what's important, especially if you're in a service industry like photography. So yeah, moving on to that. Yeah, I know, Tisha, Facebook, I've done a lot of unfollowing and unfriending and leaving groups, and tried to be involved in groups that have been encouraging. So I still find it highly beneficial, especially to my business. So for me, a lot of my client, and that's in education, even in photography, is middle-aged to past retirement. People who find themselves with spare time or new gear, or kids that have flown the coop or are about to, re-engaging with their creativity. And those are my clients. So Facebook is a great place for me to engage. I just have to understand that I control my feed. I can follow and unfollow without guilt, and try to have a feed that focuses more on groups than the public feed. And that's been working really well for me most of the time. I say most of the time because I do get lost in the scroll. And then, oh, what was that they said about Trump? Oh, do not do that. Gary, yeah, and I've liked your feed. So Gary, here's one. Gary, you always travel a bit, and you're fine doing that alone. You've been, Arizona and across Canada and doing all these things on trips. But you've done your back roads from your own province and even Algonquin Park. And I think that's really healthy. Something I could have been doing, but I was focused on the business aspect of life, photography and business. And so the other parts of business I've run while I wasn't running my studio, I attended a lot of online networking events. So as a personal brand photographer, editorial branding and portrait work, networking has been very important for me, and for me to stay top of mind as things will begin to open up. And what the Ontario government did recently in my own province was they said, we're going to close things down, but specifically in the new Phase 2 guidelines, photography studios are allowed to operate, and they're allowed to have professional hair and makeup, which they weren't allowed to do in the original Phase 2. So I can open up my studio if I feel it's safe. My hair and makeup artists have to be shielded with a mask, but my client doesn't, and neither do I, as long as I can maintain social distancing and in the closet says where possible. So they understand that business is a little bit unique. So I'm allowed to open my business, and that's led me to wonder, should I open my business? Should I begin to do in-person consulting or maybe on-location photography, or should I even open up my studio? And one of the reasons I'm holding back is this is my home. My studio is half of my main floor of my house. And so I'm holding back on that. I had wanted, Gary, that you mentioned that. I'm going to pull that up. I had wanted to possibly do an outdoor photo walk in the fall, and was nearly ready to pull the trigger and still could, but I don't want to go into the city right now. I'm going to reserve that for springtime as things open up again. I think that would be wise. It would have been great to do a big photo walk again, 20, 30, 40 people together, because we could distance. And outdoors, there's low risk of transmission. But I decided to hold off. And it is what it is. But we do look forward to that in the spring, Gary. I think that's going to be really good. So business, what other things have I done in business? So networking, opening up that. And then the other thing I did was I leveled up my live streaming and recording game to be able to do in the future live workshops in my studio. And I'm going to be doing that, working more and more toward that every day. Part of the unboxing today, which is going to happen in just a second, is toward that. Also, in leveling up my game for live streaming and Zoom meetings, I've had a lot of people ask me for help with their video technology and their streaming technology. And so while I've been learning that myself, I'm taking those things that I already know with lighting and gear and tech and all the new things I've learned, and I've been running Zoom workshops for people that want to level up their ability to show up as an entrepreneur in meetings, in Zoom calls, on Skype, on Facebook, and in live streaming. And so that's been going well. And I've this week alone, I've had 3 one-on-one consults booked for that. So that's part of the business pivot. I didn't think I'd be consulting people with the skill set I had 6 months ago on their live streams, but now I've developed those skills enough to be able to comfortably do that. And so I always had the camera technology, the knowledge of the gear, the knowledge of the lighting, and now I just had to master some of the other items, like what software to use for streaming, what devices to get a higher quality image, and I've done that. Oh, Gary, what a good idea. Sorry, guys, I got to pop over to this question, this statement. Gary, photo walk via kayak and canoe. What an interesting idea. Algonquin Park? Maybe. This sounds good. I like it. So that's what I've been doing for business and preparing for the slow opening and how that's shifted. Some people have been able to be quite busy with their portrait studios. Myself, I intentionally shut mine down and I'm just considering reopening. So for portrait photographers, I feel your pain. And now that we're moving into winter, outdoor shoots are not quite as possible. But I still do them. A couple of my favorite shoots were actually outdoors. I don't have it right in front of me, but I did a couple's photography right in the park in the middle of January. We had a cool day and they put on their jackets and we went outside and we did what was for them their most valued portraits. And they commented on how important getting those portraits of themselves at that point in their lives was. And it was out in the snow and it was a ton of fun. Just a ton of fun. So don't let season stop you. That leads to a question. Good question. Let's pull that up, Mike. I love to answer questions. That leads to a question. When using your phone as a live feed, is it done with Wi-Fi or wired? I recommend using a phone for live as wired. I use mine, and I'm going to show you in a second. I have a phone right here above me. You can't really see it. Running something for PC and Mac that is called Droid Cam, and the upgraded version can run the HD model. You do have to go to their website and find out what the little secret button is to get 1080p. It's the minus symbol. When you press the minus symbol on Droid Cam, when you're in the setup under quality, when you press the minus symbol, the option to go 1080 comes up when you've paid for the app. And so you're going to see that in a second. So I hardwire to my computer using an app to turn my phone into a webcam, Mike. When you're not hardwired, it's a little bit jerky. But if you're at home and you have a really solid Wi-Fi, like I have a really good Wi-Fi on the phone, and I can run on my data network with Wi-Fi combined, you can do it streaming from your phone unplugged, and it'll be a pretty good result. But make sure you have good upload bandwidth. That's the most important thing. All the download bandwidth in the world isn't going to help your stream. You need good upload bandwidth. I recommend a minimum of 10 megabits a second upload speed. So when you hear the term, oh, I've got 100 down or I got a gig down, you have to know what the up is as well. So if you get 100, that's phenomenal. That's excellent. You can live stream to your heart's content, even on Wi-Fi. But if you've only got 10 megabits upload, like we do here, I have like 100 down and 10 up. I need a solid plugged in version of that. And I'm doing right now, I think I'm streaming now at about 9 or 10 megabits a second. So I hope that answers that question. So let me get back on track. Thank you for staying with me. We're just about to shift to the boxing. Those are things I've pivoted to in business that have helped with my income. So I did collect what we call in Ontario the CERB for 2 months. The first 2 months I really had almost no income. And I was grateful for that benefit for self-employed people. But since then I haven't needed it, which is tremendous. And I've been able to have a couple of good months. October was a little less good, but it's still okay. And it's allowed me to run my business and gave me time to figure out what my pivots were. and that will be an online education, both in photography and live streaming, in the YouTube Live, although I don't see if that's going to lead to any monetary reward in the next year or not. We'll see. Okay, if you're running in about 15-20, I'm gonna switch over to this next portion of our show. So, photography, life, business, and unboxing. What do you think, guys? Let's do the unboxing. So, I'm gonna switch views. Let me just do this now. Where are we gonna go? There we go. There. So this overhead view is brought to you by unsponsored Droid Cam. Right there. There it is. And I'm going to put my box down. I'm going to move my keyboard over. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Oh, I'm still going to run a competition to name the bear. We're going to have to name the bear, guys. The unboxing. So here's a box. And get out your handy dandy Aproxo knife. That's what an X-Acto knife is when it's dull. This box has not been opened yet. See that? Oh, the unboxing. I don't even know what's in here. Power Extra. Oh my goodness, do you know what I think this is? It's not even what I thought it was. Power Extra. When you're doing workshops and you're doing live streaming and you're doing on-location tutorials, what you need are batteries. And so these are batteries and a charger that are going to be able to be used with my Atomos Ninja 5. So that's where we're at. And for some reason, they think I need a lens cloth to keep my batteries clean. Thank you very much for the lens cloth. I can always use those. And so those are digital batteries that will help me use my Ninja 5 recording device in the field, which is one thing I want to do. So there we go. Let's see. Box number 2 is here. No, Laura, you never can have too many lens cloths. By the way, if anybody wants to do a winter trip this year in January, early January, in February or even March, I might do one trip for each of those. Oh, Smallrig hex screw pack. There we go. Oh, turn that around. There we go. And so Smallrigs run on hex screws, and they're completely customizable. So these are all the machine screws that they use for that. So that's a good thing to have around. Let's open up this little puppy right here that came out of the box. This is a Smallrig top handle. So something that's really interesting, I've been doing live streaming and carrying a camera around. And let me just pop over. I'm really going to quickly grab a camera and I'm just going to show you something. Okay, I'm back. Whoops. Move my whole desk there. Sorry about that. Let me just come over and show you something. So when I'm using my camera, when I'm live streaming, the cameras that we're using, not this one, the cameras that we're using have flip screens and they tip up, but they're very small. And when the rigs are around them, 2 of the cameras can't flip up the screen. And so it's really hard to hold them and watch. And you're holding the camera like this on a handle over here. And it doesn't work so well. So it's much easier if you can hold the camera literally from on top of the camera and then flip out that live screen and film that way. That's a much easier way, and it takes the pressure off your arms always holding it up at your eye level. So that's what this Smallrig piece does. Let me just quickly open that. It mounts on the top of the Smallrig and becomes a handle that you can also add things, you can screw things on and through with. So if you had to add other components, Smallrig stuff allows you to add all kinds of other components. So there we go. There's that. Really looking forward to this. More hex screws, more stuff. when you order a cage for your camera, you order it according to the camera style. So let's get the overhead going again. Elsa, wow, Lori, that's good. Mike Stapleton, Frosty, Polly the polar bear. Oh, I don't mind that. I'm going to have to write these. I'm going to have an official contest, and I'm even going to have prizes. I'm going to write these down. We're going to have it all official. Polar bear. I like the Elsa idea. That's a good one. Yeah. I'm going to have a really hard time. We're going to have to, I don't know how I'm going to select the name. Wow. Okay, so just get rid of boxes. I just throw them behind me. There we go. So this, making a mess. This is a Smallrig, and it goes around a Nikon Z6. It still gives me the access to the battery pack. It has a little device for operating my screws. See there, it's built right in. It even has, I don't know if you can see this, like these are real quality items, and they're really, really good for photography and videography. It has little rubber pads so that when you set the camera inside here, it doesn't rub metal against metal. It's pretty phenomenal, I think, anyway. I'm just going to move my mic just in the corner so you guys can still hear me. So that's a Smallrig, and this is going to mount on top of my Smallrig, and it's going to allow me to carry the camera. And it still has a hot shoe mount and a strap mount and all the screw areas, so I can add extra things like an external battery to that. So that's really cool. So we're just going to put that up out of the way. Thank you, Smallrig. I'm going to put my little bear where you can still watch what we're doing. He probably wants to see things. So finally, I have to guess. I was only going to do 2 unboxings, but I didn't find the Ninja. This is the last thing we'll do today. We're going to unbox what I hope is the Atomos Ninja. Now, what would you need one of these things for anyway? What does the Atomos Ninja do? So the Atomos Ninja, oh, that's what it is. Oh, and they shipped my hard drive. You need a hard drive with it as well. And so this is a, what did I get it? 1 terabyte Western Digital Blue hard drive. Hopefully it works with the Atomos Ninja. I've read some things that it's picky about what kind you have. So this becomes not only a 4K monitor. Oh, what a nice box too. See that nice with the magnetic clip? I love that. Listen to that. Hear that click? Oh, that's so nice. Music to my ears. So this is the device here, Atomos Ninja. The battery goes here, the hard drive goes here, and your HDMI in and out go here. And this becomes not only a monitor, for instance, if you're live streaming, it can become a vanity monitor so you can see yourself. It's also a monitor you can use when you're live filming or doing workshops, so you can monitor the feed and monitor this high resolution so you get to see the quality of your image. It could even have a live histogram to show you that. But that's that little device there, the Ninja, Atomos Ninja 5, and it's going to allow me also to do pass-through, so I can go through this and then in and live stream from it, as well as record to it, and I could even do 4K recording. So really happy about that. So what's interesting is what you guys are going to experience is, as I do these unboxings, this is the gear I'm going to be using as I do more live streaming and prepare to do live workshops. I have the go-ahead from Beth for the first workshop on portraiture in the studio. If you guys have a specific thing you want to learn, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure to write it down, because that's part of my pivot, the ability to run live workshops from my studio, kind of like a creative live. And we have the technology now. You know, we have the technology to do creative live type broadcasting from our homes that was better than Chase Jarvis did it for the first year of his creative live broadcasts. Yeah, that's the truth. And that's crazy good news. Okay. Well, that's our show for today. If is that a show? I did a lot of talking today. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching the unboxing. And thank you for sharing your thoughts about all things photography, life, and business. I'll see you again next week. And yeah, again, thanks for joining. Oh, one last thing. One last thing. How could I not do this? That thing, wherever it shows up. I love that thing. Okay. Talk to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.